In today's video, we're going to talk about the most important debt that you need to pay off before you retire. Now, forewarning, this is going to be a slightly different video today. It's going to be a little bit less numbers based, but hopefully just as impactful as past videos. And this is a little bit less numbers based because the most costly debt to your retirement is not going to be your mortgage, even if you took out a mortgage at today's higher interest rates. It's not going to be credit card debt, although you definitely should pay off credit card debt before retiring. The most costly debt to your retirement is something we're going to call expectation debt. Expectation debt is a sort of mental debt that not only leads to bad decision making in retirement, but can also strip you of happiness and peace of mind. And this is because high expectations are like a debt that needs to be repaid before you receive any joy out of an experience or out of an achievement. You would think that as humans, we would look at events in absolute terms. For instance, let's say we go on a vacation with our spouse, and this vacation is a great one. It's a 7 out of 10 experience. Maybe it rained a few days, maybe there were some issues that were completely out of your control, and therefore it's a 7 out of 10 experience. Now, 7 out of 10 is great in absolute terms, but what if we had the expectation that this was going to be a 9 out of 10 experience? We have been dreaming of this vacation for years. It might have been on our bucket list. It was supposed to be the best vacation ever. Well, in reality, people look at things in terms of relative basis and not necessarily absolute terms. You are likely to feel a level of disappointment with this vacation because it was supposed to be a 9 out of 10, but ultimately was only a 7 out of 10. Now, this is the expectation debt that I'm talking about. Immediate joy and happiness is often only created when we are exceeding our expectations. Exceeding our expectations is thrilling. If we were expecting a 5 out of 10 experience and we got a 7 out of 10 experience, we probably feel pretty good about that vacation, even though we still had the same level of experience of enjoyment. So I want to talk today about controlling expectations. I don't want to do this from some ivory tower where I'm the king of managing expectations. Rather, I'm an addict of high expectations like many of you watching this. I have accumulated the debt associated with high expectations many a time. But I hope by talking through this concept, there's a little element of therapy for myself, but also that we can get better together with managing our expectations moving forward in the future. Here are a few examples where I see high expectations leading to poor decision making in retirement. High expectations frequently ruin the best investment plans. Frequently in my discussions with retirees or soon-to-be retirees, I ask what they think a reasonable rate of return would be for their retirement. Imagine you get locked into a rate of return for your entire retirement, and regardless of what financial markets do, whether they lose money or whether they grow at 15% per year, your portfolio gets to grow by that reasonable rate of return. When asking this question, the most common answers I receive are 4 and 6%. And this makes a lot of sense in absolute terms. Many retirements can be successful with a modest rate of return. Sure, it would be great to earn 10% per year, but often we can accomplish our goals with less. And so many can set a modest expectation off the front end of retirement, but when we are actually in retirement, we see that the goalposts can often shift. Here's a very common and recent example. Over the past 5 years, large cap growth has outperformed large cap value by a wide margin. From 2018 to the start of 2022, growth doubled the return of value. Value stocks were growing at 10% per year during this time period, while growth stocks were earning 20% per year. Now, even if you had all of your money in value stocks, you should be thrilled with this period of returns on an absolute basis. If you were comfortable with a 4 or 6% rate of return from your portfolio, and you're earning 10%, well, life's pretty great. But often I saw a lot of retirees shift their portfolio more towards growth, essentially chasing returns right around the 2021 time period. Come 2022 then, growth suffered losses far greater than value and left a lot of these retirees exposed. Now, why did this all happen? FOMO, fear of missing out, which is ultimately a result of changing expectations. An investor that started with more of a balanced portfolio between value and growth and stuck with it through both of these phases would have been far better off than chasing the higher return expectation. Now, if we zoom out further than this, I commonly see high expectations drag down happiness in the transition to retirement for many. Throughout our lives, happiness is something that ebbs and flows. Happiness highs are built from getting married, building a new family, excelling at your career, etc. Happiness lows stem from death, life setbacks, and just general frustrations from a lack of time and freedom. Because of this, many view retirement as a leap in happiness. When you're working 40 or 50 hours per week and putting up with a lot of, well, shit, retirement can look like a get out of jail free card that can reverse all of these issues. There is a grass is greener on the other side effect. When these types of people reach retirement, often they're let down. They didn't get that leap in happiness that they were expecting. The expectation debt they accrued was near impossible to pay off. Now look, the grass can be 100% greener in retirement, but it's not inherently better. Rather, it gives you a clean slate and freedom to work on building a better life. And rather than there being leaping improvements, there are marginal improvements. As you've gained more time freedom, you're able to work on your health, whereas that was more difficult during a 50-hour work week. Better health leads towards feeling better and having more physical capability, which will lead to improvements, but again, marginal rather than leaping improvements. Time freedom allows you to focus on travel, focus on hobbies, build deeper relationships in your life. All of these things should lead to higher happiness, but it doesn't happen in an instant. It happens steadily with intentional effort. Here's another way that controlling our expectations can lead to more peace and content in our lives. This is an idea from author Benjamin Hardy. Are you measuring your life and progress based on the gap or on the gain? When we have high expectations, there's always a tendency to measure our lives by the gap. This is a motivator in goal setting. When we set a goal to accumulate, let's say $1.5 million, and then we'd feel comfortable retiring. If you're sitting right now at $1.2 million, you see that $300,000 gap and think about what you could be doing better. Should I move into this new investment that I think can get me to that $1.5 million goal faster? How many more years do I need to work? How much more do I need to sacrifice? Gain thinking focuses on the opposite, looking at how far we've come or what we've already accomplished. I find that a lot of high performers get trapped into the gap thinking. They struggle to celebrate the victories and are constantly looking at the next gap that they need to now fill. And any way you slice it, this leads to dissatisfaction. All of us know of peers and colleagues that have accomplished great things, but they never seem to find enjoyment from those accomplishments due to this gap thinking or high expectations. And this makes you wonder, what's really the point of it all then? Now, I have no issues with setting a worthy goal or trying to achieve above average things, but be honest with yourself about the progress you've made up to this point, and then every changing gap you've created as well. For instance, think about the 25 or 30-year-old self. Would they be proud of the progress that you've made up to this point? In many cases, the answer is a resounding yes. But many of us get caught in this never-ending gap thinking because we've moved the goalposts after each achievement. You've accumulated $1 million and then reset the goalposts to $2 million. Well, $2 million doesn't feel like my expectations thought they would, so I now need to accumulate $4 million. And for some, this changing constant gap continues to the last gap that they are unable to fill because the time ran out. In a few of my most recent videos, I've been talking about how many retirees' plans look a lot better than they think. That conservative retirement planning and constantly focusing on the worst case scenarios can trick retirees into thinking their situation looks worse than it is and then underutilizing their assets because of this. For instance, a step I like to take with Safeguard clients is walking through 3 income numbers: essential spending, discretionary spending, and then plan capacity. Often in our analysis, someone's situation looks a little bit like this, where maybe their essential spending is $4,500 per month, discretionary is another $2,500 above that, but then their plan capacity is even higher than that. And the reason I walk clients through this is twofold. First, I want to talk through with a client what their feeling is if they were constrained to each of these levels. For instance, if something terrible happened and you had to only spend the essential, how would you feel? Initial responses typically aren't great, but the more we examine just what essential life looks like, for many it will still lead to a great life. You still gain time freedom on an essential budget, and that's the main thing we're looking to gain in retirement. And this exercise can help unhinge us from the expectation that retirement will only be great if X or Y happens. But more importantly, what this exercise can do is free you from the cycle of worry. Now, with many clients, when I talk about plan capacity, I'm talking about a very safe spending number. There might be a 90% probability that you can spend that planned capacity. But if we know that you're comfortable with the essential, then there's a safety gap, a margin of safety of sorts that is created that frees you from worrying about the latest news story or crisis. Again, you have a margin of safety. A lot of bad things can happen, and it will mean very little for your retirement well-being. And the good news is, most of those bad things won't actually happen. Around this expectation talk, I'd like to leave you with one more quick example that I think fits nicely into the discussion we've had so far. Let's consider the lives of two of the richest men alive about a century ago. In inflation-adjusted numbers, both John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie had an ungodly amount of money, north of $250 billion for both, depending on how you want to run the numbers. But ask yourself, if you could wave a magic wand and switch places with either of these two individuals, would you? Keep in mind, during this time, the richest in the world didn't have some of the common things that we take for granted in today's modern world. There were no computers or TVs. Most of the medication and healthcare that we know today was not available. Commercial flight and speedy travel didn't exist. Fresh food wasn't available year-round. For many retirees, given the choice between living on their essential budget today or having the Rockefellers' wealth but having to live in the early 1900s, I don't know a rational person that would trade places and go back in time. Why? Because despite all of the gaps that you hear in today's modern world, things have never been better. This is true whether you can live high on the hog in retirement or whether you're constrained to less. Today, less is a lot more than it's ever been. And so here are my recommendations for lowering expectations and gaining more fulfillment in retirement. Number one, assume that retirement will feel about the same as working does, with the added benefit that you will now have time freedom. What you do with that time freedom will determine how green the grass actually will be in retirement. Number two, build or find someone to build you a retirement plan that gives you confidence and peace of mind. Go beyond just the numbers and strategies in the plan and make sure that plan is serving you beyond the numbers. Number three, take time to think about just how far you've come to get to this point today. Put yourself in that gain thinking mode. Think about the gain you've experienced up to this point and have gratitude for it. Now, I personally don't think lowering expectations means that you have to think everything is going to be doom and gloom and then be pleasantly surprised when it's not. In my experience, lowering expectations has really only had upside in my life personally. Now, leave a comment below and let me know if you've had a different experience. Now, in terms of finding out how much you can safely spend it in retirement or what your plan capacity is, here's a video that I released last week that can help you find out just how strong your retirement plan actually is. Click here to learn more, and always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan. That's all for today, folks. Thanks for watching.